Welcome back to Fuel Up Classic. Well, here it is. Here's my £500 Jaguar XJ, which I hope you've been following the journey on this car, because a lot of you at home wanted me to save this car when I did the first video, and I bought it unseen for that small sum of money. I took a bit of a gamble, but we've slowly worked through the problems on this car, and it's been really enjoyable for the most part. But there has been some challenges. But for the first time, I can show you this car and it looks like a complete, presentable, modern classic. I'm gonna say that the X350 model of these, 20 years old now, it's a modern classic. And this one, I think, can hold its head up high with the best of them. It's not perfect by any means, and I can't tell you that this car is completely finished yet. There's some things to do, cosmetic things, and I'll get onto that in the video. But let me just show you what we've done so far since I left things off on the last video. Now, bear with me, we're gonna just show you around on the camera. It's gonna be shaky at times, but I find it's just the best way to give you an up-close look at the car. You may remember that both front wings on this car were nasty, dented, scratched things. They looked awful. So we have replaced both of those. The front bumper as well has also been replaced. The lovely people at Auto Reserve Jaguar, who I cannot recommend highly enough, had an identical car in for braking in the same colour. So it meant I haven't had to do any paint work on this car, and I've had all the replacement bits that I needed from them at a very reasonable price as well. So, look at it. Compared to how it was before, and I'll try and do some mastery trickery editing here where you can see how bad the car was when it first came to me. The grille is now back on. There's a new bonnet cable in place, which if you've ever had to replace one on one of these, it's not a fun job, by the way. Looking nice, presentable, and I think a great looking car. These are the last of the traditional looking Jaguars in my mind, and they still look really smart. And it drives so well as well. That's been the biggest leap forward since my last video with this car. I have lost count of the amount of hours that I've put into it, and I really had intended to film that process and show you, but honestly, I don't think a lot of it would have been suitable for YouTube. It was an absolute bugger to do at times. Never fun at all to take on a project like this, but I am going to show you a picture, or a video at least, of how it was when I'd stripped everything off, and it was at that moment where I thought to myself, I think I've bitten off more than I can chew now. So you may remember on the last video, we got this car through an MOT with minimal fuss. Mechanically, this car has been really well looked after, but there were some big issues which I think we've now tackled to make it look like a car once again. And a Jaguar as well. I think a Jag should always look good. They do look good. And the day that I filmed the last video, you may remember I told you that the air suspension had started to play up, and there'll be a few people at home that snigger at that and go, well, no surprise there then. They are a bit notorious for it, these cars. But most of the issues that you have with these cars, when they throw an electrical problem or something like that, is quite simple to diagnose. And it was, as I suspected, and as quite a few of you recommended in the comment section, the earth points or behind the headlights on this car are a really known failure point. So I was having issues with this headlight not working at all. The air suspension was sitting on the floor and it just wasn't riding properly. It just wasn't pumping up like it should. And that was solved simply by replacing, I say simply, it was still a bit of a nuisance of a job, but as I was all in at this point, stripped the front off the car as you saw, I replaced the earth points, and that brought everything back to life. Well, almost everything, because you may remember as well, the heater had stopped working on the same day. I thought, they've got to be connected, surely. They weren't. It was pure coincidence, and that's the fun of an old car, is that it can throw a wobble from time to time. And it didn't help that I was using this car in -2, -3 degrees weather at that point, and not having a heater is not fun. So that was solved with a really cheap part, just a resistor on the heater there, £20 on eBay, no problems at all, apart from accessing it because it is buried right under the glove box and behind the dashboard. So I had to take all of that out. Again, it was not a comfortable place to work. You've got to bend over, but we got lucky on that one because a £25 part and a couple of hours of me messing around trying to get it to fit brought the heater back to life. And that really has completed things with this car. There's quite a lot to do still, and thankfully those things are mostly cosmetic now. I want to get the wheels refurbished. You'll notice there's reflector missing on that side, as well on the front bumper. And I do think we need to get a bit of paint correction and a really good detail on this car as a final thing. Will really finish it off. And the only other thing I may do when it comes to the mechanics side of thing is have the rear suspension rebushed with new suspension arms. It's quite an expensive job on this car, but they are heavy on those things. These ones are a little bit tired. You can feel it when you drive it, but it's done 165,000 miles, so we can forgive it for that. I might just give the suspension a little bit of a refresh, get it driving like a new car again, and then what I hope, if all goes to plan, we have saved this Jaguar. We have gone above and beyond to make it a really good example that drives really well, and we might even come out the right side of £2,000 in total. Now, I can't think of another car that offers that sort of luxury and looks and a bit of desirability, really, for that level of money. But I'm not a fool in thinking that if I had paid someone to do all this work, I think the bill would have been huge. The amount of hours that we've put into diagnosing those small niggly faults, but also changing, let's recap, those both front wings, front bumper, bonnet cable, had to also investigate a coolant leak as well that it developed, fixing the air suspension, luckily, as I said, just an electrical issue on the earth points, and this little resistor on the heater. Well, if I'd have taken it to a specialist, it would have been, I'm sure, a pretty impressive bill. But we managed to dodge all of that. Sub £2,000 is my plan for this car, and I think what a thing for that price. So I'm going to leave you with one final look at it. As I say, not quite done yet, but I'm really proud of how this one's turning out, and I'm even more proud that we've saved an old Jaguar from the scrap heap. But let me know in the comments below what you think. And what should we do with it next?